The governments of the United States and the United Kingdom have issued separate security advisories to their citizens in Nigeria following the Kuje prison attack. Now, the United Nations has also issued a similar advisory to its staff in the Nigerian capital, Abuja. The U.S. government told its citizens to expect an increase in crime in and around Abuja. The advisory recommends that U.S. citizens maintain a high state of personal security awareness for the next 2 weeks and avoid unnecessary travel on the airport road. The UN has also advised all its agencies in Abuja to increase the level of security awareness in and around their premises following the Kuje prison attack. In a security advisory issued by the UN Department of Safety and Security, it asked its employees to avoid sensitive public offices and avoid spending more time at malls and other public areas. Tuesday's attack on the Nigerian Correctional Center in Kuje is only the latest in the spate of such attacks in the last 3 years. There have been at least 9 incidents across the nation. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari on Friday met with the nation's security chiefs on how to tackle insecurity. But is it time to seek foreign diplomatic and military assistance? Well, to discuss this further, we are now being joined by Nigeria's former Consul General to the United States and former Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi, and a former Nigerian Ambassador to Ukraine, Ambassador Frank Isoh. So good to have you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Let's start with you, Ambassador Joe Keshi. What impact has this attack had on Nigeria's foreign image? How is the international community looking at it?
Well, you just said it in your intro. Among the things diplomats do is that they report, they send situational reports in the country they are serving to their home government to enable the government make informed decision about the country they are dealing with. So you can be sure that diplomats on the ground have written a lot of reports on this incident. All the rumors that we are hearing as to what happened before, the attack and so many things, they've all been crystallized and sent back. And that is why you are seeing all these advisories being issued. And it's not in our best interest when you begin to see almost every country issuing advisory on Nigeria, and all of them negative. In other words, if somebody wants to visit Nigeria and then, goes to any of these embassies, the fellow gets scared and probably will not want to visit again. In fact, in my own case, I saw a missed call from my son, and I couldn't call him much earlier. He's in the United States, and late in that day, I called him. And he said he was very upset when he woke up in the morning and he saw all kinds of calls from his friends saying, look, get your parents out of the country, get your parents out of the country. And he has no clue. And that was why he was calling and calling and calling. And later in the day, he saw a news item that it was prison that was attacked and prisoners let loose. And he said he called back a very close friend and said, listen, do you think my parents don't live where it is safe? They're okay, but I don't understand this prison thing. So I explained the circumstances to him. Now, that's just one incident. I'm sure that there are so many others. But the point in answer to your question is that it is not in Nigeria's best interest when every news that comes out of the country is negative. And this is why it is honestly so sad about this incident and the stories that have been, and even the president's own expression of disappointment. It's a clear indication, not just of his frustration, even though for me it's coming late, but this would also be reported. It's a measure of lack of confidence on the security chiefs. But guess what? This is what we've been having since the last couple of years, and nothing done.
Okay, and we'll bring you in, Ambassador Isoh. Let's look at this advisory. When an advisory is issued, how strong is it, and what does it mean in terms of your diplomatic transactions whenever you're doing all of that, when a particular advice is issued, like the UN is doing at the moment, the US is doing at the moment, the UK is doing, how much importance is attached to it?
Thank you very much. When nations engage in bilateral relations, the key elements there is trade relations, security of the nation, the peace in that country. And when that peace appears to be threatened, very responsible governments usually send advisories to their citizens, warning them, just like the US has done, on places to visit and places not to visit, within the vicinity. So it's part of interstate relations. And frankly, it's not a defining moment for the country, I will tell you that. But I don't think it's something to worry about seriously now, but it's a thing of concern, for the country. Now, it means that our image is going down, and when perceptions persist, they could even become worse than reality. So the way countries perceive you will go a long way, in harming relations between you and those countries. So I think the government really has to rise up to the occasion. This thing has been creepingly getting close to the seat of government, and what has happened so far just shows that our security is not up to the task at hand. And the authorities will really have to work hard. I believe there should be a rejigging of the security architecture in the country. The way the government has been handling so far has not been very effective, and this has been brought home very clearly to the government itself by this incident that just occurred a few days ago. It's like I said, it's not something to seriously worry about now. These advisory notes. There are things countries do to protect the interests of their citizens in the receiving countries.
Okay. When you see President Buhari meeting with the military chiefs, and then over and over we've seen these meetings happening, it just looks like not so much is being done, because although security matters, you won't see so much being said, but the important thing is that these meetings are ongoing. But in the midst of the meetings, when you juxtapose it with what the president said in his tweet, should the international community really be worried that it looks like the government is not really in control of its security architecture, if the president could be lamenting just like any other citizen on the street?
Well, like I said, it's something of concern, really. But I don't think it's gotten to a stage where we really should be seriously worried about our relationship, with other countries. What we really need to do, is to regain the confidence of these countries. And the best way to do it, is to internally shake up the system and get everyone to do exactly what they're supposed to do. Now, these incessant meetings between the president and security chiefs, and nothing seems working. It's something we should be worried about. It just shows something is lacking in the system, and certain values must be overthrown this time around, and some element of seriousness brought into governance. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. And Ambassador Joe Keshi, we've seen a situation whereby our elite intelligence gathering agencies seem not to be at their best at the moment. It's because of situations like this that we have the National Intelligence Agency, the NIA, and of course we have the domestic intelligence agencies. From your experience, what do you think the intelligence community should be doing to contribute to resolving this issue at the moment, especially the NIA, since we have some of these elements? I mean, like you would have heard, Isoh claiming responsibility, Ansaru, and of course the Boko Haram that we've already had. So it means there's an international dimension to this, and it looks like we're failing to provide intelligence from abroad for local consumption.
Well, I don't know whether, what you're saying is true, but let me say this, that there are, from every report that has been circulating, true or false, one central theme is that it was made clear this attack would take place.
Yes, we also heard that too, that the DSS also passed across such an information.
So if that is true, the security agencies have done their own part. It is now left for the people that got the security information to act on it. And the fact that we are now hearing that for the past how many years, the CCTV camera has not worked.
CCTV cameras
has not worked.
And
this has not worked. That has not worked. It's a clear indication, you know, of what's going on, not just at the correctional centers, but also possibly in other areas. You know, in a different interview, I also blamed the security for some of these things. But if they are now saying, we told them, and they did nothing, you don't blame them. And by the way, it's not just only the security people directly. The former minister of Internal Affairs, right? That's Internal Affairs.
Yeah, which is Interior now.
Interior, beg your pardon. We were in service when it was
yes, it was still Internal Affairs, just like you had External Affairs for yours there.
The former minister, I don't know whether it was on your channel or on, you know, said when he was appointed, he paid a visit to the place. And he made a lot of observations. He went back months later. Not one has been implemented. And
no one was fired.
Fine, exactly. I was coming to that. But one of the things that struck me in his interview was that he said the people, the warders, I think that's what they still call them, but they've changed after they changed, you know.
The correctional service.
That the warders were not serious. That they were not doing their work. In other words, they lacked the capacity. And I would like to believe that part of what he proposed was that they need to do something. And when I was listening to the minister, I was saying to myself, in fact, this man is also indicting himself. You are the minister, for goodness sake. You went there the first time, nothing happened. You went there again. No, you should have told your PS and everybody that we need to do ABCD. Let's get this thing corrected. But it boils down when some of us mentioned the issue of leadership failure across the board. That you just did not take your responsibility to the full length and ensure that a number of changes, you know, were made based on your visits and observation. I've been to that prison once or twice to see. I've been to Benin prison. I think I went to see. Look, you need to visit the prisons. You need to visit where the warders themselves live. You need to visit the police barracks. And you'll be shocked what you find out when you visit all these places.
Well, we keep investing so
this
much
is part,
there,
exactly.
and that's the challenge.
So you begin to say,
can account for where the monies are going to.
What shocked me sometimes is, if they are not given money even to maintain their facilities. And so if they come out today and say, yes, there was no CCTV and things like that, but we just need more than, you know, CCTV, I'm not too sure it has worked here. There is something that the Kenyans did. You know, I read somewhere that they tried to do it in this country, it flopped. Why did it flop? Why did it flop? But today, from a center, they have a system. From a center, you can see the whole of Nairobi. And you can actually see, in fact, what's the name of this CNN guy, James, you know, who visited the place? He complained, he said, so with this your camera, you can actually see me even on the corridor of hotel, this thing. So the guy said, yes, but where are you afraid of being seen? These are the things we should put in place, not just in Abuja, but in cities like Lagos and the big cities in this country in order to begin to take our security serious. I remember once
borrowed some monies from the Chinese to have the CCTV deployed, but unfortunately, we still don't have that. And yet, we had to repay the loan, unfortunately. And
that's not the only loan you repay, and you have nothing to show.
That's the sad thing. I want to come to the issues of what needs to be done to help out. I mean, you are, retired diplomats. Your colleagues are still in service. When issues like this happen, how is the foreign minister supposed to behave? How how are embassies across the world supposed to be reacting to people wanting to find out if their loved ones who are based in Nigeria are safe and all of that? What do we do? during these kind of situations?
Well, it's very easy. We just try to put up a bold face and paint the picture as nicely as we can. That's our job. We're not going to go out there and tell them that Nigeria is unsafe and it's not a place, for them to come and invest and what have you. We'll acknowledge that we do have certain challenges now, but they have been met. And the government is desirous of working with relevant stakeholders to bring the issue, situation under normal control. That's exactly the way we're going to put it, Put up a brave face. We don't attempt to make our government look bad, because it's our country after all. And our duty, is to ensure that a very bright picture is painted of the country that will allow people, to see the country as a place to visit. And the internal scene, well, the government really will need to rejig its security architecture. It certainly is not working. Because you have to help.
Need to fire more people? Will that create a solution? Or we should look for a way of seeing how, because it's becoming difficult to actually get the right words. Because the National Assembly has submitted several reports to the president. The president has met with several of these security chiefs. Several documents have been provided. It looks like something is just not working. What do we need to do? You're an experienced diplomat. You've gone around the whole world. You've seen how things are being done. What would you be advising this country to do at this moment?
Well, like I said, the first thing, rejig the security architecture. Number one, interrogate the amount of money security agencies receive on a yearly basis. And investigate if that money is properly utilized. I think that's the first step. If government is lax about providing adequate funds, then we won't have to blame the security agencies. So that's the first place, we have to start our investigation. Because I can't imagine, that reasonable amount of money have been released over the years and it's just going down the drain. Somebody must account, for those monies. So it just shows the seriousness of government. If government can sit down and really say, enough is enough. Let's get these things working. If Ghana can do it and keep its country safe, why can't we do it in Nigeria?
And the complaints keep coming that we are much in population. But I just want to talk about this. I'm asking this because we have lots of foreigners working in Nigeria. You have the Dangote refinery, for example, lots of foreigners being brought in. You have the...
While I agree with my colleague and brother here, it's all about leadership failure. And look, when I served in Ethiopia, it was during the Civil War. There was only one industry working. That was Ethiopian Airlines. It was going down and a captain, a colonel, was appointed to head the Ethiopian Airlines. His first meeting with the, he just read out the Riot Act. If a flight is supposed to land in Ethiopia by 10 o'clock a.m. and it fails to land 10 o'clock a.m., he told the staff, I want the report and the resignation letter of everybody on the route. He told them the same thing, he's leaving here by 10 and to get to London at 2 p.m. and it fails to get there, everybody on the route, I want to report with resignation letter. Without putting in a penny, things change. When we go to the airport to welcome guests coming in, officials coming in, if you look at your time for 10 o'clock, 5 minutes to 10, you say the flight
approach
coming in. What did the president or the prime minister of Singapore did years ago to his own friend? He jailed him, and things did. In fact, the last time, I think 2 years ago, when we were in Singapore, we had a conversation with the Prime Minister. And we asked the same question. Does it mean that you guys don't actually have infractions? We didn't say infractions in government. He said, he said, we had 2 or something like that last year. But we deal with it in such a way that nobody will dare repeat it. I wish when the president gave order that I want a comprehensive report. He has demanded that everybody involved in this thing should submit a letter of resignation. I wish since he took over, these things has been happening on all fronts. Things would have changed. Things would have changed a lot.
We've seen Nigerians even forcing him to change. I mean, the security chiefs, reluctantly he does that, but it looks like that also doesn't seem to be the solution.
Because look, when you begin to force, when you begin to spend 4 years, 5 years to beg the president to change his security, how will things change? No, you don't have to force. He needs to know that things are not working. Just like ordinary ministers discover that the leadership they have is not going to, it's not going to lead them. It's bringing them credibility problem. Johnson did not commit any serious crime. It was the bad decision he took in naming this guy that put him in trouble. Yeah. And they said he should, let me just put it this way, because he lied. Did you know the character of this guy before you appointed him? He said no. Report came out later that, that he knew. But somehow he just ignored. They just said, this is the carelessness of Johnson all along. It is a leadership failure, continuous, reluctant to take decisions for one reason or the other. And it permeates the whole system.
And just before we go on this short break, Ambassador, so what do you expect the president to do after issuing orders over and over, and it looks like the orders are not being carried out, and it looks like he's stuck in a bubble? He doesn't want to be seen to be firing people every now and then, because of course people will be afraid to join his government.
I don't think there'll be any fear of anybody joining the government. Just like my colleague has mentioned there, if one person gets fired for inefficiency, other people will sit up. But because they know there's this lax attitude on the part of the president, to put it that way, to do away with officials who are not performing, so people take it as liberty to do whatever they want to do. Because if you look at this incident in QJ, it's difficult to comprehend how it could have happened.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
they came in, prison. 300 of them came in, and from the video they sent out, said 1/3 of the group was busy inside in action, another third manning the gate, then the last third blocking the road so that nobody will come in. And for about 4 hours, they operated freely. If there was failure of intelligence, does it mean we don't have military formations in Abuja? No response.
Yeah, and it's very close to the airport where you have the paramilitary agencies, you have the civil defense there, you have the Nigerian Immigration Service, you have the Nigerian Air Force even having a facility there. There's a forward operating base of the Nigerian Army there. There's a police housing estate somewhere there. And there's a police station not very far away from the correctional facility itself.
It's not difficult to understand why the president was angry, the way he responded, but we want him to go beyond that show of anger. People must pay for dereliction of duty.
Yeah, because that's it's the only way coming to get very close by. The international airport could have been affected.
4 or 5 months ago that the governor of Niger State told us that the people operating in his state are very close to the FCT, that they wouldn't be surprised if within a few months they're in FCT. They took him seriously. They've come in.
All right, I'll just ask you to hold on there. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about if it's time for Nigeria to seek foreign military assistance and what, of course, we can do in terms of diplomacy to get help from other countries. You're still watching the Arise interview. When we return, the conversation continues with Nigeria's former Consul General to the United States and former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi, and a former Nigerian ambassador to Ukraine, Ambassador Frank Isoh. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the conversations. I'm Somna Sambo. We're still discussing with Nigeria's former Consul General to the United States and former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi, and a former Nigerian ambassador to Ukraine, Ambassador Frank Isoh. And we now move on to other issues now with what's been happening across the world generally, we've seen a situation whereby Nigeria continues to seek foreign military assistance in terms of working together with the United Nations and the United States, and then of course with the other superpowers. We have seen a situation whereby this military cooperation between these countries has helped to defeat the issues of Boko Haram, and then of course Isoh and all of that. And of course we'll be taking a critical look at some of the things that we need to do to enhance our military cooperation. At the moment, I come back to you, Ambassador Joe Keshi. What exactly do we need to do in terms of enhancing our military cooperation?
You know, let me go back to where we ended our conversation in the last segment. My father was a police officer. We lived in the barracks in Ibadan. These were the period in which if there's an emergency, and there were a lot of it in Ibadan in those days, you only have to blow the bugle and whistles, and the policemen will rush out. Before 30 minutes, they've all assembled at the field, battle ready, and they are going out to where they are. I want to believe that system have broken down over the years. Okay? Now, if you want to rebuild, we have to start by rebuilding the capacity of the police, the military, in fact, the paramilitary. That very statement that the former minister made that the people were not serious. Sample. I went to, it took me 9 months to get a passport renewal in this country. 9 months. I wasn't told anything was wrong.
Despite your status?
Fine. I had to call former to intervene. And what's, you say, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened. Okay. And that's how the story. So it is, look, I go back to this issue of leadership. You have to rebuild the capacity. You have to restore the values that have been lost over time. You have to restore the values that has been lost over time in this country, particularly in government services.
Yeah, and the idea now is how do we seek foreign assistance? Is it time for us to seek such if we need to? And what sort of assistance do we need?
I'm afraid, because I think, if I'm right, was it not under Jonathan we tried? No, let's go back to President Olusegun Obasanjo's era. I think, if you remember, I think it was General Malu who was the chief of staff at that time.
Okay, Victor Malu.
Victor Malu, if my memory serves me right. And they've just come back from ECOMOG, triumphant, they did very well and so on. And he rejected any offer of even retraining the military. And he was like, look, the people we fought in Liberia, the US Army has never fought that kind of people. And today, the same military makes an excuse that they are not fighting people, they are not fighting conventional warfare. And I always ask some of my military friends, who did you fight in Liberia and Sierra Leone? So, look, we have to resolve the problem here ourselves, because I'm not too sure. And then beyond that, I think under Jonathan, if I remember, I think the Americans came in with some assistance. I'm sure that you remember how the whole story that was told, how it failed and things like that.
Yeah, we've enjoyed some support actually, yes, with the Super Tucanos being sent.
Exactly. Yeah, no, they can send you. They can send you, you know. And by the way, our officers still go abroad for training. Our officers still go out. So there must be something wrong internally that they themselves will have to look into and resolve. But I believe that they need to do a lot more training. They need to bring in the discipline and the values that were in these services before that have been lost over time.
Okay. So, well, for more than 50 years, the United States and Nigeria have enjoyed a strong security partnership that has led to the issues of, cooperation, regional and multilateral cooperations with the ECOWAS, the Multinational Joint Task Force, the Global Coalition to defeat Daesh, ISIS, and alongside African Union. Now, if you look at some of this cooperation, we've seen them helping to push out ISIS, to defeat ISIS in one way or the other. We've seen it helping to clamp down on ISWAP and Boko Haram and all of that. But surprisingly, it looks like as the military was defeating some of these terrorists within the Northeast, they've infiltrated and come back to the Northwest and then now to the center of the country. How do we work with these international partners like the US and UK to see how we can further defeat these groups? Because they have an international connection, and we've seen them claiming through the ISIS network that they perpetrated this act at the Kuje Correctional Center, releasing video through the ISIS network and all of that.
I believe the military has the capacity to contain these people. Like you observed, they did some good work, in the Northeast. But there has been apparent lack of effective leadership in tackling the issue of herdsmen and bandits. I think the first thing to do really, yes, we need some outside help, but I don't believe it's in the area of manpower. I think the area of intelligence. I think that is where the emphasis should be, because if our intelligence is working properly, we would have been able, to intercept these people who came to Kuje, even the moment they left their camps.
So, well, just like we learned that the DSS shared information with the Correctional Service and then some other security agencies. If it wasn't acted upon, who will you be blaming?
When they were leaving, how they went. Right?
How they went, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Because they didn't pass conventional rules.
Of course.
And they've been living, within the FCT for quite a while. We've been reading of stories of people getting kidnapped, in the rural areas of FCT.
Just 2 weeks ago, we had a group of farmers, about 50 of them or so being kidnapped.
Yeah, so they have cells in the FCT. So there must be intelligence, exactly. There must be serious intelligence on the part of the military, to detect the movement of these people. So I think that's where we need help. If the military appears to have been overwhelmed by the activities of these criminals, I think we should start, by getting outside help in the area of intelligence. Then again, too, I think the government should look at the issue of motivation. I think our military is not well motivated. If what we see in the social media at times, is anything to go by, soldiers on the front don't get the allowances when it's due.
Well, the Chief of Defense Staff has denied that. He said that it used to happen 2 years ago, but from 2 years ago, up until now, that they are being paid and there's no soldier that's complaining. Okay,
so let's hope that is the situation now. Then again, too,
we should look into the fact that the rumors that there are mules in the military that are helping this.
Yes. So, was it not long ago they caught a military personnel who left his base and went to join ISWAP somewhere in the Northeast, and he was caught.
It was in Yobe. I read that, but the military was able to intercept him.
Yeah. But what it means, just like my colleague has said, there are moles in the military and they just have to be fished out. I believe we have the capacity to contain these renegades, that's for sure. Okay, but the area I think we need international assistance in the area of intelligence, more training and equipment, to detect movement of people, in certain areas.
Okay.
But you remember, again, I go back to the story that in the past, they've complained that the intelligence provided was not acted upon. What do you do? Today, the intelligence agency in this country is saying we provided information. Nothing was done. So if they come and give you information and you didn't do anything, they're not going to risk their lives for you.
Now, there are some information that we've got, though we are still fully trying to verify, which is for the fact that there may be a situation here at the hands of the government. The terrorists have actually been calling for the release of their leaders and all of that, for the swapping of other Nigerians that they had abducted and are still in their custody, and it was difficult for the government to actually release them because of several situations. Could it be that is the delay in releasing or entering into a negotiation with this Boko Haram or Isoh or Ansaru leaders that has made them now to want to, go through that situation and eventually free their leaders by themselves? Because it looks like since we are not prepared to enter into negotiation and they feel they have the capacity, why not just go and bomb the facility and free their men?
Well, Sambo, you didn't. You didn't narrate the full story of what you have read, which all of us have
these
read.
are situations that we're hearing every now and then. People are reaching out and saying that, look, the Abuja to Kaduna train victims have been saying that they should be, the government should act and do something. And we are asking, could it be that is also an opportunity for them to have struck, actually, because these negotiations didn't really go well? And you raised the issue of conspiracy, for example. How is the government working hard to ensure that critical information is not leaked? Because we've seen instances whereby negotiations are reached, agreements are reached, and then before you know it, just before things are actually decided upon or eventually implemented, it's leaked out there. What do we do? Let me start with you.
Well, I think it's an internal thing within the military itself. And I believe the military is very serious. It should be able to fish out the mules within its fold. And like we said earlier, some heads must rule. Until these heads rule, I don't see so much seriousness being brought into the work of the military. When we cozy up, to inefficiency as we've been doing so far, nobody will find it. I think it's serious enough, to want to risk his life for the country. But then if you volunteer to be in the military, then you must be ready to sacrifice your life for the nation. That is the way it is. Then we want to come to the legislature. I don't know to what extent they've been voting money for the military.
They have. There's almost no request that the president has.
If they've been voting adequate resources, is there any mechanism put in place by government to check how these resources are used by the military?
Well, the security funding is not supposed to be made open.
No, within the government itself.
Listen, it's only in this country we engage in such financial declaration every now and then.
Yes.
Go to the internet, you see how much the U.S. military budget is. You see who is providing what and everything.
And the prices are known.
And the prices are known. It's here we make all kinds of excuses that no, security is not, funding is not supposed to be. Who said so?
And that's why the federal lawmakers are angry that, the requests are being
who said so? Where?
But they just can't account for what's going on.
Everyone said this on the internet, and you will see the prices of all the military items. You will see the budgets of every military. So who says that security? It's only this that I hear that security this is not supposed to be. No, that's not true.
Okay, now let's come to something that is very critical and has been disturbing me. If you look at some of the recent abductions by some of these terrorists, you see that there are foreign nationals among them. The last one that happened just, I think, 2 Fridays ago was the issue of some Chinese nationals being abducted at the mining site in Niger, Shiruru. And then if you look at the Abuja-Kaduna train, I think there's an Indian national also in between and all of that. When we have this kind of situations as retired diplomats, how do we handle it? Is there any way that maybe the military of such countries can cooperate with us? Or how are such things usually managed? Because, these are foreigners being kidnapped.
No, they would also try to get, to help get into negotiation. And sometimes, like it was very common in the case of the Niger Delta militants kidnapping foreign workers, they pay the ransom and they get their people back. One could have said that, okay, they might want to, help us in terms of getting involved militarily, but these days nobody's interested in doing that, in sending their nationals to go and die, particularly in a situation when they do not see any form of seriousness and the rest of it. So we come back again to the fact that this is an internal problem that we must find a way to resolve. And I go back by saying it is all about the leadership, shedding some blood. He calls it, that action must be taken. Yes. If you begin to fire everybody, if you begin to fire 1, 2, 3, things people will... Look, what are we saying? What are we...
Since we don't have a culture of resignation, people...
No, forget... When Muritala, the first broadcast of Muritala in this country, we were just about to join the service. I remember, a situation where, a senior colleague of, a senior schoolmate of mine where we were staying, immediately after that broadcast, a neighbor came and knocked on the door and said, "Uncle, I'm going to leave this house by, by 5 a.m. because the face of this man I saw." This man could actually decide that you will send out everybody who comes late tomorrow. "Uncle, I'm leaving." So when she went away, the guy said to us, "This is a lady who never leaves that compound before 9 a.m. in the morning." Just hearing the determination and what the new president or head of state is saying, she got scared and said, "I'm leaving
but it's
home
a
by
similar
5."
thing that happened in 2015 when Buhari came to power. There was
So-
that fear and lots of people were rearranging
Yes.
themselves.
Yes,
But
rearranging
after about
themselves.
6 months,
So,
9 months,
now,
people just
you
got back
now
to
ask the
normal.
question, is it old age? Is it because of the president's illness, or what exactly is it that you now find that in his second coming as head of state, some of the things he could have taken action, or is it because there's no effective 2IC like Idiagbon, or whatever is the problem? Because there's a need to make a comparison between then and now, and what happened.
Okay, so I'm interested in finding out what, from you, what should also be done with these foreigners who are still in the captivity of this. While the lives of Nigerians also matter, but because of our relations with all these other countries whose nationals have been kidnapped, what do we do in this instance?
Well, our government is in a very difficult position in that respect. Now, if people criticize government for not going into negotiation with these criminals, so to speak, and it is because of that they decide to invade the Kuje prison, I will say that I'm in total support of government not to go into negotiation with these people. You do it once, then you continue doing it. We saw the initial approach to dealing with these people in the Northwest when the present governor of Zamfara, Matawale, came into office. It was a question of trying to pay off these people. So you pay them up, they use the money to go and buy more weapons and still continue to engage you. They have no other job to do. Even those they gave amnesty and tried to rehabilitate into the society, after a while, they went back to their old ways. So I don't support the idea of this negotiation. I know it might sound a bit callous that one doesn't care about the lives of the people in captivity. But if you do that the first time, you just continue doing it. Particularly since we don't appear to have that strong military and security personnel to take the fight to these people.
Okay, so the issue of insecurity is actually a global problem. Ambassador, you would have heard of Shinzo Abe's death this morning in Japan, how he was killed just like that. I mean, so there's an international dimension to this global security. People are hungry globally, lots of uprising, lots of misgivings here and there. I mean, what do you make of that, and what are governments across the world supposed to be doing?
Well, look, I think I'll start by expressing my condolences to the people of Japan. They've lost a great former leader and a very skillful diplomat, by the way. The way he conducted its foreign policy, was very interesting, to me, and it's just sad that I want to believe that a very deranged fellow, and for Japan that I'm not too sure that they do experience this kind of massive killing that you find in the US, in Japan.
I was so shocked myself.
So
Japan
this is rare. So we just have to wait to find out, what is going on. Yeah, you're right. Look, the world is challenged by a number of problems. But when you look at what's going on in our own continent, it's completely different from what you find in the US. in the U.S., for example, it's not because of hunger. Look, you can't say that of the U.S. is as a result of hunger. A guy who is hungry will not spend such amount of money to buy weapons and begin to do videos on how he's going to kill people. This has been the story.
But I was just saying generally, if you see what's happening in Sri Lanka at the moment,
uprising. No, but you see, in Sri Lanka, they have not killed anybody. Sri Lanka economy has just collapsed as a result, again, of bad leadership by the current president and his family. Himself and his family, they've been changing. One will become president, one will become prime minister. They just ran the country down. And this is where we need to be careful. People have been saying, you see it in the newspapers, analysts have been analyzing this, and I was pointing out to your guy who does a beautiful, report every morning on the economy. They are pointing to the fact that we might default. We might not be able to pay some of our debts, or we'll be spending more to pay. These are all what leads to the kind of crisis you find in Sri Lanka. So it's something we need to avoid. So yes, our own deep problem is completely different in terms of security from the rest of, our own is internal.
Okay, Ambassador, as we try to round off this conversation, I would like to, hear from you too on the global security challenges. Like we saw with Shinzo Abe's death earlier.
Well, the case of Japan, is very different from the experiences we're having in Africa. You may have somebody who is even overfed, but deranged somehow, carrying out this kind of dastardly act in a kind of society.
But governments are challenged generally in terms of the security issues.
Yes, but you occasionally have a lone figure who just wants to make a name for himself, if he's sane, or it might be some deranged fellow who has some internal problems within himself, and he just feels the best way to express himself, is to do something that will put him in the news. But our case, unemployment is rife. Until we begin to address this issue, even this Boko Haram thing, we can't just use guns, and hope that is the way we're going to solve the problem. We must address the social issues.
So there's a tough challenge for the next president of the country.
Certainly there is.
Certainly. For the next president.
But if you say equal to the task, and he knows what to do, I think
what targets would you be setting for him individually as we go? Before we close the show, let's start with you very quickly.
Well, the first target is to address the insecurity we have in this country, because without security, you're not likely to have investors coming into your country. And addressing the insecurity, is coterminous with creating employment for the burgeoning youth of this country and addressing issues as they arise. Take the case of ASU. Why should we have ASU case, lingering for so long? And nobody appears to be bothered that our youngsters have been out of school, for so many months. Right. So these are issues I believe the next government should tackle.
Just before we go,
it has the next president in the first 100 days has to be bold, courageous, and take certain decisions that we quickly not just send a message to people in this country of what he wants to do, but we just begin to address some of the economy. Look, there are a number of things he can do in the first 100 days, but he has to be bold, he has to be courageous, and he just must find the right type of team. And once he takes this decision, look, he just must stand by them. And of course, the whole...
Unfortunately for the president, he still has to choose from among the military personnel that are available at the moment tackling the same security issues.
He gives them a tax and he tells them, listen, if you tell a guy...
If they are going to be, you're going to have a different set of people.
Even these military chaps that are there to look, they are very fine officers. Yes. They are fine officers. They are well trained. If you say to them, listen, I want this thing to end in the next 3 months. They fail, they go, another one comes, you will see that it will end.
All right, we must thank you so much, Ambassador Joe Keshi, former Consul General of Nigeria to the United States and former Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we've also had Ambassador Frank Isoh, who is a former Nigerian ambassador to Ukraine. Thank you for taking out time to help us understand these issues. Our focus has basically been on this attack and how the international community is looking at it. We would have time to discuss politics some other time as we head to the 2023 presidential election, but we must thank you so much for being on the show.